always helps when you unmute yourself. Good evening, everybody. My name's Colin Livingston. Welcome to Talkin tonight. Obviously, very excited to get to bring on and finally start interviewing and have a little chat with my good friend, Mr. Alex Tagliani. Alex is going to be joining us here soon. Like to go over some of the past week's racing and started with again, for people who don't know, I do a little radio segment on Thursday afternoons here in Edmonton on TSN 1260 with my good friend Jason Greger, with Jason Strudwick and Connor Halley, and also even wrote a post about this on Crier last week about is F1 jumping the shark, and are they getting too busy or too big and getting too arrogant? Now that's actually saying something for a sporting organization that has really been known to not exactly be the most humble throughout their life. But looking at the comments that were posted last week, from guys like Christian Horner, essentially taunting Ferrari and Mercedes for like, where are you guys? Like, we're so far ahead, we don't even know where you guys are at. That kind of stuff, that kind of discussion. Obviously, it's really easy to speak like that when you're at the top, but you don't stay there forever. And, Christian Horner was one of the most vocal complainers and whiners that F1 had when Mercedes went on their 7-year tear of constructors championships and lots of, drivers titles and things like that. Gunther Steiner last week at the same time, he's making comments kind of poking at IndyCar, saying that if we do a good job here, we should be able to take over these guys because their ratings are dwindling, and we should be able to take over. Which really prompted me to take a look at overall value, and it's kind of shocking that for the price of a ball cap at an F1 race, like to buy a souvenir baseball hat, a casquette, as my upcoming guest would say, is $90. For $90, you can not only get into an IndyCar race, you can get in this weekend's race, the GMR Grand Prix, at for $40 a ticket. That's the cheap seat. The most expensive grandstand seat at that IndyCar race this weekend is $110. You can't buy a T-shirt for $110 at the F1 race. So when you compare the value for dollar of IndyCar and the fact that in my opinion, I don't want to tip my hand too much here, and I don't want to sway my upcoming guest, but IndyCar is providing the best racing out there right now, like the pure racing. Yeah, the machines don't have the technology. Yeah, they're not, running off of $144 million budgets, but the racing is spectacular. And instead of just listening to me, run my mouth, hopefully he's ready to go here. We'll bring on my good friend, my brother from another mother, driver of the number 18 car in the NASCAR Pinty Series, Alex Tagliani. What's going on, bud?
What's going on, buddy?
Oh, it's just another day in paradise. I wonder if you ever pictured this day happening when we met here, whatever that was, 15 years ago. One day I'd be interviewing you.
No, it never crossed my mind, but the way things are going right now on social media and stuff, I just applaud you to have this podcast because it's quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to applaud me for. This is all the end result of our good friend Dean Blundell and what's become the Crier Media Group. It's been a lot of fun here. Now, I can tell you're not at home. Obviously, I've got a little bit of inside information, but tell everybody where you're at right now.
I'm in a hotel in Ontario. Had an appearance today at a welding facility a client of NTN, one of our sponsors. Obviously, you can see you're on there as well. So, yeah, it was quite cool. The story that I told the guys was that first of all, I said to them that I was privileged to be here because obviously they received me because I'm a race car driver. But I told them a story about welding, and so that was when I was young. My father had a mechanic shop. He was a engine builder. He was a car builder. He had his little race team, and he was working on normal cars. But anyway, for me to really earn a place in his race shop and basically be around go-karts and cars, the first thing that he told me to do is to weld. So I was cutting a lot of stuff, breaking a lot of things, old things, obviously, and welding. I was 12, 13, 14 years old. And the goal was to weld everything that I was cutting, weld everything that I was breaking. And then he would evaluate me on what I would do, and basically that's I was not able to touch anything. Oh yeah, actually I was able to wash the cars, and that's the only thing I was allowed to do.
Was there
So
any instruction, and was this actual stuff, or was this just random pieces of
no,
steel?
there was like there was like the metal bar, like the lead bar. So like, and then there was the bronze bar. So there was like like, I don't know how you call it, but those welding
Yep.
rods, the one had like some green stuff around it, and when you were welding, it was bronze color, and it was like creating like this goomy green stuff around it. And then one was like a much tinier thinny rod, and it was like metal, but that one was harder to weld than the other one. um, but then I was cheating also because sometimes my welding was very crusty. So then I would basically go on the grinder and grind all the extra crust. And after that, with the brush, I would like, brush it and try to make it as clean as possible. But anyway, like there's a very interesting technique to weld. My father is a very good welder, by the way. He used to weld uh, go-kart two-stroke pipes, and that type of welding has to be extremely, extremely precise, like a surgeon. I never been able to weld like this, but anyway, long story short, I was welding, and that's the only thing I was doing in the shop. And then I don't know if it was like for me to contribute at something or learn how to do something nice instead of just thinking that, whatever is broken can never be repaired. I don't know what was beyond his mind for me to do that. But anyway, I did that for a while. And then after that, I start being allowed to start touching things in the race shop and, do some stuff. But, and I end up being good with my hands, doing all these type of things. I was cutting, mufflers, pipes, harder metals, softer metal, and I was trying to put them together, find a way to put them together with like a plier, a vise, make sure that my two ends were free. Anyway, so I got good at doing stuff with my hands in a race shop, and so I told those guys today that it's interesting that many years ago I started like that, and now I was in front of them, and I felt like there's a lot of welding things in the world of racing. So I told them that we try stuff. Sometimes we cut things. We want to go to the track. We want to test wider suspension, longer suspension, and sometimes everything that is made with metal, we would basically cut, weld, test, and then when we finally have the final result, then we would go into a CNC type production piece. But there's a lot of things that we have done even in IndyCar, cutting stuff, cutting pieces, rocker, like all these type of things are like pieces that we need to weld to test, and then after that, when we get like the proper result, we would go into production. And it's very important. It's you don't go on a track going around at 400 k's an hour with stuff that could break in your face. So Yeah, so that was my day, and I'm back at the hotel.
Yeah, what's really interesting is I don't remember Scott or anyone from the team ever asking you to weld anything for us on the car.
I don't think they trust me. They would. I think they're right. I mean, like I said, I did it because my father pushed me, but I never developed any sort of a craft in it.
Yeah. No, you do a lot of things well. I mean, I think people would be really surprised to see how much stuff you do on the car during a race weekend. Not to say that our crew can't, but man, when stickers need to get put on the car.
I was gonna say that before you said it. I really like putting stickers. I I like putting stickers on go karts. I like putting sticker. I don't know why sticker stuck with me for so many years.
Thanks, Jock.
You could talk to my father without me beside him, and he would tell you I made him freaking crazy with stickers. I would always, take it out, repositioning, it's not straight, and so yeah, when my first go-kart was in the garage at my family's house in the winter time, I spent the entire winter basically redecorating the go-karts, with stickers. So yeah,
Yeah.
stickers I can do well.
Yeah, well, if you remember a couple of years ago, we were in Wetaskiwin and we needed to, I think it was just a new number sticker on the side of the car. You handed it to me and you go, "Hey, bud, hey, can you put this on the side of the car?" You came back about 5 minutes later. And again, this is a podcast, so we don't have to worry about radio rules. And you're like, "What the fuck did you do?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, did you have a seizure while you were putting this thing? Let me do it myself. And yeah, I can say I've gotten a lot better at installing stickers, like especially on CRG stuff now. They're so much easier to do, and they've got the patterns cut a lot better than like even 2 years ago before the new body style. But yeah, you do that really well. But I mean, obviously we know each other really well. We go back a long ways. You and I have raced together in one form or another. Really for 15 years, and I've got pictures I'm going to throw up here in a little bit, but you know, I've seen you in an IndyCar garage working around IndyCar mechanics. I've seen you, the one place I haven't seen you really grab a wrench is when we were, racing alongside the Penske guys because, their structure is so set. But man, you'll grab wrenches, you'll look over the guy's shoulder like, "Hey, bud, what are you doing over here? What's this and that?" Like, you're not exactly you're not a sit back and let the race and the car come to you kind of guy. You like to be on top of it.
We should. I think we should tell the story of Fritz and the Penske
Oh,
guys.
hey,
That's why they would never let you touch anything. So anyway, the story is like we have Fritz. Fritz, well known in the NASCAR community. He's our interior guy, and he's working on the team on the 18 crew. And he comes with me. I'm bringing him to Road
and
America.
everybody loves Fritz.
Yeah, he's a very good guy. He's a very nice person. He's very generous and everything. But anyway, I'm bringing him to Road America to experience a weekend. We never know, how long it's gonna last. I was racing for Team Penske on the 22 Xfinity car, and he comes along, and the first thing we leave with the bus, and I see him show up at my house, and he has like all these bags, and I'm like thinking, Fritz, we're leaving for 3 days, 2 nights. I said, what's with all the bags? And he goes, "Oh, I have my crew equipment, his helmet, his suit." So anyway, just right there, it has the NASCAR Canadian sponsor. It has nothing with the discount tire, nothing. It doesn't fit with Penske, right? So just with that, they would never let him come even close to a camera, right? But anyway, he thinks that he's going to have a chance if something happens to the crew. So I said to Fritz, I said, there's more chances that they will replace the driver, on the weekend than you take the place of an injured mechanic, So, so, and an injured mechanic that does pit stop, right? So we arrive there. Fritz is all pumped up. He shows up close to the car, and one of the team directors look at Fritz and says, "Please do not touch the car." So literally, Fritz, his whole world just collapsed. I mean, he cannot even come to, like, let's say 4 feet from the 22 car. So Fritz hang around. The experience is still great. I mean, he saw the
Oh,
way a proper team works. I mean, he saw everything. He was invited in the trailer and all that. But unfortunately, he couldn't really just put his hands on the car. So he was a spectator. And so anyway, later on in the weekend, the day of the race, like we have all these guys showing up. So they just arrived by plane and they're going to be only there for the pit stop. And these guys are just ex-athlete and they show up. So like, obviously I'm a small guy, but these guys were like monsters, right? And and Fritz goes, "Oh my God, who's that?" So because he thought like, how come those guys are able to walk in, just open the trailer doors, while these guys are like the team pit stop crew,
yeah.
right?
They're specialists.
So they
They
come
don't
out.
mechanic. They're just
Yeah,
there to do pit stop.
yeah. They didn't touch the car all weekend, so they're only there for doing pit stop. So it's a pretty awesome things to see. You know, there's a lot of stuff happening the morning of the race and all this. Anyway, and then just before we get the car from the garage to the grid, someone comes and gives a Team Penske discount tire polo shirt or shirt to Fritz and a hat. And they said to him, "Okay, now you can push the car on the grid." So anyway, just like it's just like like a funny story about like our friends Fritz, but also to emphasis on the fact that race teams normally are not really inclined to let people touch their car and do things. So I'm happy not to weld, and I hope nobody's ever going to ask me to weld a part, in our teams, because I'm probably going to lose parts on the track.
Yeah. Here's that 22 car at Road America. This was, interesting that you brought this up for Fritz, because this is definitely one of our topics for tonight. Obviously, that was a crazy weekend. I'm going to play a video clip here, and just so you know, Bud, when I play the clip, our mics will be muted. So this is just, you'll hear what's going on, but you won't be able to talk. Just give me a second here.
Tagliani's out.
Yeah, there's a 22 car.
Yep. He wasn't going to make it anyway.
Already, I'm stopped.
Yep, he wasn't going to finish.
And 4, I'm trying to get you some help here.
Wow.
So now you look at Brian Scott, Sam Hornish, those guys.
Now, obviously, that's we know how this all plays out. That was 2014 Road America. A big chunk of the race was leading at the time, and getting towards the end of the race, obviously ran out of fuel. Now, I was at that race. I wasn't, I wasn't hoping to be a spotter. I wasn't hoping to be a crew chief while we were going on. But do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, but honestly, like spotting, I mean, you need to have a very good spotter, but honestly, I think the team would have been open for me to bring my own spotter, but those guys were all set up with all the 5 spotters around the racetrack. Yeah. But I think, like if a driver has the confidence to work with a spotter and he says, "Oh, I want to work with this guy, can you bring him on the team?" You're only going to join the roster, and they're going to believe that, the driver has an input and he's confident to work with this guy. Mechanic, that's a different story. Like it's just you touch their car, right? So but it would have been nice. It would have been nice at the time to maybe having prepared ourselves better and say, okay, instead of bringing 5 spotter, bring 4. We'll bring mine. Like an extra person. It would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk a little bit about that race, because I think that that's probably one of, and again, I'm a biased observer, but I still think that was one of the best driving performances that NASCAR has ever seen, but it won't be remembered, aside from us, because it didn't result in a win. But
Yeah.
set that up a little bit, so you were leading, you were, obviously you feel the engine sputtering, you're coasting, you're telling the team, hey, listen, I'm out of fuel. At the same time, because the Cup guys are in, they were in Sonoma that weekend for the Cup race. Mr. Penske is phoning in, so he stays in contact with the crew chief throughout the race. That he's listening. You're coming down, you've got this lead, and all of a sudden you run out of gas.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So first of all, so we led the race. We were extremely competitive. I think this race started in the wet. So, when we got in the wets, I was gone. It was just we were extremely fast. Then it starts drawing towards the end. And so there was no yellow. There was yellow in the race, but towards the end, there was no yellow. And, somehow we were short on fuel by a lap, right? At that particular time, because I came out of turn 13 or 14, the last corner of the racetrack, and by chance or by no chance, we actually ran out of fuel at that particular spot. Because so I come out of turn 14, and basically I'm heading to take the white flag. If I take the white flag and I'm the leader and I run out of fuel on the straightaway, the race is over right there. So you go from P1 to dead last. The race would have finished under yellow. So the fact that I ran out of fuel on the way up to taking the white flag, and I stopped at the entrance of the pit lane. So I pulled into the pit, but I never made it up where the pit lane gets wider. I'm blocking the pit lane. And that was enough for NASCAR to throw the yellow. But I had such a big lead that the guy in second place never crossed the start-finish line. So the yellow came out, and now we're going to go in overtime, a green, white, and checker finish. And if you listen very carefully to your video, one thing that really just pop up to my attention was how calm Jeremy Bullen is. Oh, I'm gonna try to get you some milk, bud.
I'm gonna get you some milk, bud.
And I'm thinking,
he's like, and then shortly after he said that, he's like, before you're not connected, you're not getting pushed by the tow truck, you're still sitting there dead. The field's coming by, you're like, the race is lost, this is over. And he's like, hey bud, do you think the dry line's dry enough for slicks?
And I'm thinking, right there, I'm thinking, I didn't really compute about the green, white, and checker, but I know I'm gonna be lost, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna get you some help. We just lost the race. It was like I was gonna grab the white flag, and if I would have grabbed the white flag and not being able to make that last lap, the race was over. But those guys saw it right away that it was an opportunity. So Jeremy asked me if I wanted slicks, and I said yes, because at the time, I think nobody's going to come in, and whoever is coming in are going to risk, right? We have nothing to lose, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to put the slicks, because now that I know there's a restart and there's a white and there's a green, I said, let's put them on. So very, very big surprise. It was the right call, I think, for the leaders, right, to stay on the track. But where it made my my job not easier, but where it made my job that it give us a chance to climb back from last to second, was the fact that all the spotters were actually calling their drivers to stay on the dry line, to take away the dry line from the 22. And so my spotter was was basically telling me to be careful because everybody was staying on the dry line and they wanted to give me the wet for passing. But, and it was, again, it was a good strategy, but what it created is that one lap on the dry line with rain tire
that were old
is very slow
Yeah.
compared to if you have the chance to go and drying it, you know. So those guys were focusing more on on taking away all the dry line and stay on the dry line to go fast, but they were burning their tires in within the amount of lap that was left to go.
Yeah.
So yes, it was hard to pass when I had to go in the wet, but the fact that those guys were burning their tires at a very high rate or speedy rate, it allowed me to, you know, made my progression and my climb, you know, a lot faster.
Yeah. So it was, I went back and I actually watched the broadcast, and you know, listening to, it was Alan Bestwick and, I think it was Dale Jarrett who was doing the color. And he says, you know, oh, you know, Tagliani, because I like how they always put they really say the Tagliani, you know, he had a great race, you know, he's kind of out of this, but you know, we'll see what happens. And they said he's going to need like if there's a couple more cautions, he might be in this thing. Is what Dale Jarrett said. You restarted 23rd. You were up to 15th by the 6th corner. So had already passed 8 cars in 6 corners. You're up to 9th after the first lap. And that's when the white flag came out. So that was the end of it. And, you know, obviously, I mean, I know about the conversation that you had afterwards, but you gave a little bump to a future NASCAR champ there with just coming out of Canada corner there before pulling onto the straightaway. Yeah. You know, I think that kid went on to do something pretty good.
So it was not a bump. It was a side-by-side, door-to-door. So bumping, I feel like bumper into rear bumper, don't like that much. But I got in deep on the wet. You know, he was turning in the dry. It was tough for me to slow the car down. So I slid into his door, and he ran wide, and I made the pass. But, I mean, obviously, our pace was so strong on slicks compared to those guys on wets, right? It was just kind of, I mean, he was doing the right thing. He was taking the dry line, but you know, so when I went into the wet to pass him, like it's tough to slow the car down. So we went door to door, and no, it was a great race. But you know, like again, I look back at all these races that I've done in Xfinity and or trucks. And you know, I'm pretty proud of myself. That I'm a very clean driver, because at that particular time, if I really wanted, I could have spun someone on that restart, and then they would have gone yellow. And if they would have gone yellow, man, I would have won that race with like just so much ease, right? Or people would have said, oh, now because it's yellow, we're coming in. So I would have cycled straight to the front where we were before.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, sometimes it's tough because you have a lot of demons in you, and you know, for the glory of the win, you know, like you have some temptation to do things, but I'm proud that I resisted, you know, do these type of things, because it's not me, right? So, but anyway,
it's true, because you know, I encounter a lot of people who, you know that we work together, know that we're friends, and you know, a lot of the time they always have that they always have that perception that you've got this reputation of being a reckless driver and wrecking people, and it's like, like, listen, I'm on the radio with the guy every week, and I hear what the conversation is. Like, never, ever. I've heard spotters say to you, like, listen, you need to take this guy out. And I'm not going to mention the situation. I'm not going to mention the spotter, but you came back and said, no, like, you know, maybe if you get out of the car, you get upset. You'll say, I'm going to take you out at some point in time, but it never happens. That's just upset talk. I hear every word that happens on that radio, and never is that ever discussed where it's like, okay, Tag, you know, we need you to come up here and, you know, take out the, you know, I'll say 84, because we'd never ever take out Larry Jackson for any reason. It never happens. Like never, ever, ever. Yeah.
It's just that it's just like a product. The problem is a product of NASCAR, and I'm pretty happy that I had this cool talk not long ago with Ryan Blaney, and we chatted about go kart and all kinds of things. But I also, wanted to chat because I was on the broadcast of the Kansas race, and I wanted to pick up his brain. So anyway, we chatted a while, and he was mentioning to me that there was a lot of people upset about the way NASCAR is treating, the road racing. Number one, because the car are very much solid
Yeah.
now. The bumpers and everything are so solid that you can actually bump people and not really hurt your car the way you would hurt your car before, cut tires, bend fenders. Um,
And the
so,
problem with that
and a
stiffness,
lot of,
though, is that all that and any of that contact now, it goes right into the driver. The
that's
car
right.
would collapse and it would damage. You would feel it, but it wouldn't be the same. Now, it's dangerous.
Yeah, and because the car is so much more solid, they're taking advantage of using it, to move people around, right? Without having the fear of damaging their car. But I feel that, people are a bit unhappy about these type of things because then it's left to the drivers to fix their problems, right? And it, I think we shouldn't be doing that in racing. I talked to someone actually at my appearance today, and we're talking about like other sport in hockey. If you say cross checking is not right, but like you let it go, even if the players inside of themselves they know it's wrong, how many people would cross check more if grabbing someone by the mask in football is a no-go, but the referee lets it go? I promise you, even if the players know it's dangerous, they'll do it. NASCAR is the same thing. If you know that, like you shouldn't be bumping someone out of the way, and I'm talking about road course, right? Road course, there's so many ways of trying to attempt a pass. You could get in trouble. Like, I mean, you could go straight, you could miss your braking, but at least you're trying something, right? Um, I think just not closing your eyes onto some moves and maneuvers on road course, I think it just opens up like a huge can of worms, and then the drivers are gonna retaliate. They're gonna try to fix their issues on track, and I don't think it's the right image for NASCAR as they progress and they keep going more and more and more and more on road courses, right? So I don't think it's the right image they should be sending to people. And I think there's a way of racing in a much cleaner way on road course. So I was actually glad that when I talked to Ryan, they're not happy about the situation, and they're trying to change things around, and especially him, because I told him, I said, look, I raced with you in truck, and I unfortunately my throttle got stuck at the start, and I was actually having to lift the throttle for downshifting. It made my life extremely hard, unfortunately, because we had a truck to win. But I was glad that he won, because the way he won in the last three corners of the race against Armand Quiroga at the time, he basically didn't take him out. The guy blocked. He crisscrossed him three times until he came out of the last corner and basically, got him at the line. And, kudos to him, because honestly, it's the best finish I've seen there, contrary to so many like crash fest. And it shows that it's possible. So I'm pretty sure Ryan was in the best seat in the house, and he had the bumper of the guy and said, "Oh, I can win the race today." But he just resisted the temptation for his own glory and did the right thing as a race car driver. So I applaud him for that, because it was a proof that it could be done, and if you really want to, you can do it, and he did it. So I think there should be more of that, in our series, and even across the NASCAR series, because then it does what it did at the last race, where people start throwing punches and they're mad. For sure you're mad, even in NASCAR would penalize some actions. Okay, it doesn't give you back your position. You just go home and you're mad. But you know what? If they penalize the other guy, then you don't have to do anything. You just take it on the chin, but the guy is penalized. But on top of taking it on the chin, going home with no points, now NASCAR just looks at it and say, "Oh, it's good." Then for sure the guys are going to try to fix their problems with each other on the track. And I think it's the wrong image to send.
Yeah, and it's not even that NASCAR, and this, this isn't really the shit on NASCAR section, but NASCAR doesn't just not penalize that stuff, but they actually came out and said, "Have at it, boys, and we are going to let you guys solve this on track." So if you're gonna be eating, I can also I can make my screen big while you're taking a bite here, bud. Don't worry.
Man, I'm so hungry.
So am I.
I have to eat something.
Can you hear my stomach growling on mic? Can you hear my stomach growling on mic?
Yeah, I didn't hear it, but
it's
oh
so
my
loud.
God,
I'm like,
I'm
geez,
so
I think
hungry.
people are going to be able to hear me. But anyway, you know what it's like when decisions don't come down, and when something happens on track where it's not penalized. It's not so much about you wanting to, and I'm not saying you as Tag, I'm saying you as a driver. It's not so much about you wanting to hurt the person that hampered your race, but you've got to set a precedent to say, like, you can drive to this level, but you can't go past it. You've got to set that limit. And to go back to your analogy about the NHL, can you imagine what the playoffs are pretty brutal right now as it is. And I'm not honestly watching the playoffs. I just see what people talk about. But if the NHL said, "Listen, we're no longer going to issue penalties. We're just going to let the players deal with it on the ice," where somebody slashes you, you retaliate. You go as crazy as you want. Whether it's fighting, whether it's slashing, whether it's boarding, you got no more players. They're all cripples. You've got no more, and like, it's not and at that point,
I think it would be a mess, right?
But
it would be a complete mess.
You never see the skill of a Connor McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl. In NASCAR, man, they tout these, who was it? Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen and Jordan Taylor made the cup race at Circuit of the Americas. Those guys didn't get a chance to show any of what they can do. They didn't get any chance to show their skill or their talent and why they were one of the best drivers in the world, because they get treated like a wrecking ball. And until
and they said it too. They said it to the boys. They say, "Man, it's a crash fest around here." You know? They didn't have like a very good experience. But I think I understand like the angle of NASCAR, because for so many years they had so many tracks, right? So you have like short tracks, medium track, super speedway. You have like, the restrictor plate racing, the bump and shove. To a certain extent, I understand. Even the short track. Like, for example, I always said that, as an example, you're behind someone and you're a tenth quicker. You can't go anywhere. It's tough to pass. The exit speed is flowing. The entry of the next corner is flowing. You don't have enough deceleration and braking to launch a move beside. So you move the guy around, and
but there's a code.
You make yourself.
There's a code.
Yeah, you move him around.
You tap him once, and he knows you're there. You tap him twice, he knows you're there. If you get up to him the third time and they don't open the door to basically let you go and drive around them, then you drive them through the corner. That's kind of the code amongst drivers.
Correct. And the reason why you do that is because passing someone and making a move on someone on the oval is way more risky. So you're hoping that the person will let you go and also let you go. But then if you show that you're quicker, then you leave him, and then it was the right move to make. But I think you cannot bring that on road course. Like short ovals, okay. Places like Martinsville, understandable. If you're faster than a guy and the guy is just always in your way, there's a way of making a pass. But you're not wrecking the guy. I think on a road course, there's way more options.
Sure.
Like to the braking is extremely important. You can outbrake someone. You can go straight. The guy could actually passes you back on the exit. There's so many different options, and when you have like so much talent, and like drivers gonna have to find a way to make it happen, right? Sometimes the guy is gonna block you. He's giving you the outside, so you take it and you try to outbrake him from the outside, and the guy starts to outbrake you from the inside. But for sure, he's not gonna make the corner the same as you, so you try to cross him again. It demands a little bit of creativity to improve the show, right? I think road course, unfortunately for NASCAR, because now they have so many different type of track, they should implement different type of rules. They cannot just stay away from the ruling or the officiating for the, to try to facilitate their job and say, oh, no rule, and like this we have no rule on any type of track. I think, because you want to race on different type of tracks, you cannot bring the same philosophy on ovals on a road course, because every time there's going to be a restart at Circuit d'America, when you restart, you go nowhere. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a breaking point and everybody is like, they're all in a ball, right? And then you start going through the S's, and then you get to another big braking zone in the S's, and then everybody is there. So, the guy cannot leave you. He cannot get into a rhythm. So it's so easy to get landed in his bumper and just moving him around to take the position. I think if you want to race clean, there's ways of creating so much show for the fans, because those guys are good, but they're just, why should I? I can get away with it.
And that's the problem with road course racing the way it is right now, is that you've got the best driver in the world. Let's say Jenson Button. He's I don't care. Jenson, Kimi. They're former F1 world champions. These guys can brake later than anyone. I don't care if you're in that car all the time. These guys can find that threshold. If you're following that guy, they're going to be quicker than you. So how do you beat that? You wait until they hit the brakes. You're not going to slow down in the same amount of time. You just make sure that you stay in line with less braking and you push them out of the way. That's not a racing move. That's a wrecking ball move. And that's the kind of stuff I think has to go away, because you're taking away a driver's ability to showcase their talent. And that's really, maybe people want to see the wrecks, but I can't believe that that's true.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think people are that desperate or just want to see people wrecking, because there's a level of danger as well in there. I mean, we all see the accident of Dale Earnhardt Sr. I mean, it doesn't even look like he hit hard, right?
Yeah.
And
but those
are
the most dangerous ones, are the accidents that don't look spectacular, because they have the energy is dissipated in an instant, instead of the accident where somebody's tumbling, where you see body parts fly, like not people, but like parts of the car coming off, sand's coming up, grass is flying. That's energy being dissipated over a real long amount of time. Yeah, there's bumps and yeah, you can get hurt, but Dale's was like, you're doing 190 miles an hour, you get hooked, you hit a wall and stop. That's the difference.
Yeah. I think it's not just because of the fans. I think it's just, like NASCAR, it's like as they have done this for so many years now, and maybe they feel they need to stay in that sort of course. But I think if they would try it, I mean, I know that, you take guys like Ryan Blaney, you take guys like Joey Logano, you take guys like Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, guys that are Daniel Suarez, guys that are good on road courses, and you put that sort of rule, I promise you will see stuff that you don't think would be possible. Yeah. Because they would be more concerned about being penalized. And then when that is up onto their head, all of a sudden they take all their talent out and they leave it on the track. And, one move brings a consequences, and a consequence brings another move. And then all of a sudden it opens up, the the race, right? It's the same thing as hockey, right? I mean, you could put a lot of crazy rules, but then it's not a game anymore. It doesn't open up the game. So to be able to see the talent of guys like Connor McDavid, you need to allow the game to be open.
Yep.
If you create rules that the game is not open, those guys they could
never
be
know.
all talented you want. You're not going to see anything. Nope. So try to ask an NHL fan to decide, if he would be more willing to see some actions with good players and some good passes and some good goals and some crazy play, or give all that up to see more roughness.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that people would choose the first option.
No, I agree. In your opinion, this is how I kind of started, but I want to get back to it. Who is offering, or what series is providing the best racing right now, in your opinion?
Look, I think that, I think personally, maybe I'm biased, but, because I come from IndyCar, maybe I'm biased towards IndyCar. I think for multiple reasons. I also think that I think Formula One has gained a lot of popularity because of the Netflix show they did, and I think people are also, and that's my humble opinion, but I think people are also eager to see if there's going to be another rivalry happening. People want to see maybe the Verstappen Hamilton replay, or not replay, but rematch. The way you want a rematch in boxing and and other sport. But personally, I think IndyCar, has a very good product at the moment, because also the rules, right? I mean, Formula One, they do pit stops, but they don't do fuel. Strategy, 9 times out of 10, is quite straightforward. I think they have a lot of options on tire. They have a lot of options on a lot of things, but the problem is, I think the fact that there's very rarely yellows. The way they accept and to do pit stops also, it basically takes away, I think, the unknown. Yeah. And the only problem with Formula One is that, there's also a lot of differences in the cars, and then there's not a lot of unknown, right? Unless some sort of crazy situation, you would probably see different winners and some action and some packed action and stuff like that. But that's what maybe is missing a little bit. So I could be biased towards IndyCar also, because I think there's way, way more ups and downs in some races, and you never know who's going to win. The other, we think that Penske is going to be quick. Newgarden has a chance, but then in a race he comes in and he's like struggling, and then it turns towards other driver and other teams to perform. I think for that, I think NASCAR, IndyCar as a very good product.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree 100%. And thanks for kind of filling in there. I had somebody at the door, like somebody's been knocking on my door here at work here for like the last 10 minutes. So I had to duck away. So thanks for covering. But yeah, really simply, it comes down to who's going to win the race this weekend. In F1, you've got a 99% chance of being right now if you say Red Bull. If you have to split between Verstappen and Perez, okay, 75% you're going to get Max, 25% you're going to get Perez. This weekend's GMR Grand Prix at Indy, who's going to win the race? No clue. It could be any one of 15 drivers, and maybe even more than that. Like, that's what I love, because you never know who's going to win. You never know who's going to be in contention. You never know. Like, you just never know. You know that at the end of the year, Newgarden and Scott, the Penske guys are going to be in the championship hunt, whether it's, Willie P, whether it's, Newgarden, whether it's, Scott, Scotty D's going to be there. You have a good idea that, Andretti's really good this year, but who's got the edge?
Yeah,
No idea.
but they're going to be there because of consistency.
Correct.
Or whoever makes the less mistake, but they're not going to be there because they're going to win 14 races.
No. 100% not. And that's what I love, is not knowing what's going to happen through the weekend. I mean, Formula One is still great and I still love it. But for all these new people who are getting into racing and all these people who are experiencing motorsport for the first time, and F1 is their introduction to it, it's like, you need to open your eyes a little bit, because what you're watching isn't really great racing. It's spectacle. It's a show. If you want to see really great racing, come and watch IndyCar. Grab a ticket this weekend to the NTN Bearings, whatever we're calling it, I'm sorry, I don't know, race at Sunset Speedway. Man, put on a great show. NASCAR, our Pinty Series stuff, and I always try and be really clear that I'm not confusing the pro level of NASCAR, the Cup, the Xfinity, the Truck Series with what we do in Canada. While we're under NASCAR's banner, it's very, very different operation. But our racing is great. You never really know from week in and week out who's going to win either.
Yeah, I think I think last year, with the higher car count, and potentially this year, and with the car count, but also with the level of competition, I think when you get to some road courses, Mosport, Toronto, GP3R, I think it's it's very tight, and it's really some pretty good, interesting racing. I think, like some crazy finish also on the oval, because the nature of the short track racing that we do have. I think it's a lot of action packed racing.
Oh yeah.
And I think we also have like this issue with our series, that we're doing so many different races on so many different tracks, that I think we need to look at very carefully, like the way we're gonna officiate things, because again, in our series, I've seen too many finishes where someone got taken out, and I think
which is really
it basically takes away a little bit of the proper finish.
Yeah, that's a Mo Sport special. That's Canadian Tire, turn 10, don't hit the brakes. We've seen that, that's happened to us.
But what's really frustrating is that, can you imagine, right? Like, let's say you're fighting with another driver, right? So you're thinking, how can I be second on the last lap? I'm thinking, listen, this cannot happen. I mean, I cannot compute this, right? This is almost like the type of races with the bike, like when they're running on the oval, where nobody wants to go, right? They're stopping. So can you imagine, you're going on the straightaway, and instead of like just going flat out, you're actually barely accelerating because you really want the other guy to pass you. So you're giving him the position. You can't race like that, and I think at some point it's going to be whoever is willing, to be second on the last lap, because he knows that whatever the guy does, and that's considering that two guys are from the same strength, but you either lead and try to get a very big lead and hope that the race is not going to finish on a caution with a green-white checker, or, like you're second, because if you are second, you're almost like in control.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm going to make sure not to mention anyone's name, because I don't want to get anyone in trouble or throw anyone under the bus. But, I think it was 4 years ago, we were coming down to the last lap. You were taken out at turn 10. Other driver went on to win the race, went and talked to NASCAR afterwards. And, the story was, if you had been wrecked and didn't finish the race, then we would have looked at that more seriously. but because you were able to keep the car under control, sliding through the grass, and I think ended up finishing fourth, there's no penalty for that. It's like,
I think, look, everybody knows my opinion. I've said it many times publicly. I mean, I cannot agree to this explanation. If someone drives like that, but the driver that is the victim is capable of going around the boonies, coming out of the grass, and finishing fourth, the move is okay.
yeah,
But if you hit the wall as you get moved out and cannot finish the race or finish the race with damages, then you're okay.
yeah.
I just think that
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense, because then that same move has been done other times, on and on and on and on, and it's keep going like that. So it doesn't matter if you finish the race. It doesn't matter if you finish second. It's just,
It's the
can they?
infraction that the driver causes. It's if you walk up and punch somebody in the face and they happen to like getting punched in the face, does that mean that that wasn't a crime? No, it means it's a crime because you walked up, like, that's assault, and that's how it gets charged. I mean, but that's part of life. And NASCAR obviously considers the show a whole lot more than they consider, what happens on track. But, again, I don't want to turn this into the NASCAR bash hour. Let me show you a couple of things here. Do you know what this is?
Oh my God. that was in Edmonton, I think, at an event, right?
That was the very moment that you and I met.
Yeah.
That was during what they called the sponsorship summit at Northlands. You had flown up from Vegas, and they brought you in as a guest speaker to talk about, the benefits of sponsorship and, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was able to kind of parade up, and we all got our pictures with Alex. And that was the day that started.
Amazing photo, man. That's a good memory.
Oh, hold on. Wait till you see some of these other gems that I pulled up here. I mean, dude, I probably have 10,000 photos of you and me, the car, it's crazy how many pictures I have.
You have one with the Canadian flag. Oh man, I can't tell you that the little Parker is no longer little. Okay,
no.
That I can vouch for that.
So this was the first year of our karting event. This was the second year of our karting event at our old track. You were talking about that picture
the
there.
Flag.
Yeah. That's a favorite. Let's go. I'll try and find a good order. I'll save.
It's cool that the car is like, you can see the yard of brick as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, being at Indianapolis.
That was last year.
Yeah. Do you remember where?
Yeah, that was at I think was in Edmonton.
Nope.
No, not Edmonton. Where was that?
That was after the race at Oshweekon.
Yeah.
Yep. Because you said I did a pretty good job. We were pretty busy there.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
That was the first time in my life that I was watching you drive 5 wide, and I wasn't worried about it. Normally we get 3 wide, and I'm having like bowel movements. We would go 5 wide into a corner, but there was so much room and everything. We kind of started figuring out what the timing was, and it wasn't such a big deal.
Yeah. No, I remember.
Mandy caught that one at the very end.
Yeah, that was a very busy night for you, my man.
Yeah, it was fun. You should remember this.
Oh, that was in Europe.
Yep, over in Italy.
Yeah.
There's your promo picture that I got in the press release today.
Yeah, that's in Saskatoon.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember that, but I know
Saskatoon when we won the race.
That was that. Yeah. No, it couldn't have been, because the race we won the race at night. It would have been dark.
No, it didn't finish that dark.
Okay, my memory's a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I think that's when and that was when we lapped the entire field at Sunset Speedway.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. That was one I wish I was a spotter, but Warren did a great job that night. And it obviously the resolution isn't the best, but I should have done this backwards. But that was and again, our mics will be muted here, but that was the result of this. You remember that?
Oh yeah, you broke my car. You broke my car.
I have no more cars, mate.
Yeah. So yeah, it was unfortunate because we were running second and third, but we're we're okay today. But on the spot, we're running with like a small team, very limited budget, running third, gone to second with the mistakes that Paul did. So it was unfortunate. They're very tough to take.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, you and Paul are okay. I'm actually scrolling through some of the pictures from last November. I'm going to see if I can find, I know I took one and see if I can get it uploaded here. It's a bit of a process to play with this system, but and that's kind of a setup, and I don't want you to necessarily answer San Jose 2006, but what is, because I've been beside you for so many interviews, and I've seen radio, TV across the continent, even around the world. What is the most asked question you have?
Like on media interview or by fans?
Either or both.
So, media interview would be in numbers would be how's the car. So by numbers, like you're on a 3-day weekend. Every time you cross into a media, they will not ask you what did you eat this morning, or they will say, how's the car. So that would be the number one question in regards of the quantity of questions you get. But then after that, it depends, it goes. You would basically have a lot of questions. If you're at Indianapolis, they would start asking more technical questions about aero, pit stop, qualifying. Then fans, obviously, the number one question is always about about speed. I have something in my throat, but it's like they want to know the top speed of the car.
Yeah, that's a famous even in go-karts, how fast does it go? And every time now, because it's like, even for me, I don't get interviewed about this stuff, but people come through the shop or we see them at a trade show or whatever. How fast does that thing go? And I always roll my eyes, because it's like, it doesn't matter how fast it goes. Whether, go-kart at my home track here in Edmonton, we hit 113 kilometers an hour. At Tremblant, we hit like 135 kilometers an hour. It doesn't feel any different until you get to a corner.
I think if you have an opportunity to speak on a speaking engagement and take the time to really explain the behind the scene of racing, to educate the people, then you have the opportunity to make them understand that the way we evaluate, the pace of a car is over a lap. And sometimes it doesn't really matter what sort of top speed you're doing. It's what matters is how fast you're going to be able to complete that lap. So specific tracks will basically allow you to reach 200 mile an hour, 205 mile an hour. Thinking about real quick, Road America, for example. Other track will not allow you to get to that point. And most importantly, the level of downforce or the trim level of the car won't be even like Road America. So if I take a comparison, if you go to Mid Ohio, you will run so much more downforce on the car than you run at Road America, that if you take the downforce level of your car from Mid Ohio and put the car straight to go to Road America, you will not even be close to reach the top speed that you would normally hit when you put the downforce package of Road America. Same thing in Montreal versus Toronto Indy. If you run the Toronto Indy package in Montreal, you will never reach the top speed. Montreal is a type of track where you need to find a way to trim because there's airpins and slow chicanes, and it's bounded by like a lot of straightaways, in between all those chicanes. So you need to find a car that has a lot of mechanical grip for the slow corners, and then it goes as fast as you can in the straightaway. So that's why there's a trim level. So like we never look at it from a speed perspective to really give us ourselves like a mark on, oh, we're good today. We're going like 240 miles an hour. I mean, if you're on an oval and you're going 240 miles an hour, but you're in the corner and you're like sliding all around, you're not going to be very quick around the lap,
Yeah, but it's like
Indianapolis is a good example. If you hit 240 to 41 in the straightaway, but you're not able to stay flat in the corner, you will never do a good lap. It's just, you're going to be very high on the board in regards of top speed, but that doesn't mean that you'll be on the pole or you'll be able to go around the lap with the proper pace that you need to really come across the line, as the fastest
but
car.
if you compare, say, Road America, where you hit almost 200 miles an hour in Champ Car, or Long Beach, not even close to the same top speed. But it's not about the mile an hour. Long Beach probably feels faster in a lot of ways than Road America because walls are this far away. Road America, you make a mistake, you could go sliding through the grass, the gravel. You can, pull over to the Johnsonville barbecue, grab a hot dog, come back. It's no big deal. But you make the smallest mistake at Long Beach, even though you're going 100 miles an hour slower, it's deadly. You're on the edge. You're at the maximum adhesion to grip. And that's, I think, what people are really asking about is the sensation of speed. And you can get the sensation of speed at any speed if you're at the ragged edge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at Toronto Indy, like between turn 3 and turn 6 or going up to turn 8, I mean, visually speaking, I mean, you're not going all that fast, but I can promise you it is feeling way faster than Road America. Because when you go at Road America, the track is wide, your visual is far, you can see far, like sometimes you go inside the corners and, there's a wall on the inside, but you see the apex and you see across the apex. So even if you come to a tight corner and you exit, there's so much vision that it takes away the speed, the impression of the speed that you have. But if you are in between walls at Toronto, you might go 30, 40 miles an hour slower, but man, it seems that you're going way faster. And it's the same, it's the same principle as if you drive, on a 3-lane on the 401 and you go 100, it could seem very slow. But if you drive 100 k's an hour in a on a small road in the forest, or in a rally road, 100k will look pretty quick, right? So it depends your environment, where you're doing it, and where you are and what you see. That's going to make a big difference in the speed that you feel. For sure. That's why in a go-kart it always feels a lot quicker because you're so low, everything is so small, everything happens so quick, and you're only running 130 k's, 140 k's an hour in a straightaway. But the speed sensation is quite impressive.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're getting blasted with wind, you've got people who are 3 inches off of you, an inch off of you. You're going down the back straightaway at Tremblant, and all of a sudden you come up to that corner and you miss by just a little bit, you push a little bit too far, and all of a sudden you realize that something bad could happen. You get those moments from time to time where it's like, geez, I got to hang on. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Now, speaking of Tremblant, you had a bit of an announcement this week.
Yeah, so the go-kart track, actually, the entire facility was owned by Lawrence Stroll, the father of Lance, and sold the facility to a person called Gad Biton. He is now the new owner of Ferrari Quebec, and he's in the car industry, a lot of very high luxury brand, and so basically he had a tenant before at the go-kart track. He wanted to keep the the big track for cars, and I think there was like maybe a misunderstanding, or there was like not an agreement that was reached, and we end up getting a phone call. Wanted to know if our group, Taggy Karting, that's running the indoor karting center, had an interest in getting involved in karting, and because we have the CRG brand that we really love, and we want to keep growing and just be more solid in the world of karting. We felt that it was potentially, a good move to solidify ourselves in the world of karting, because yes, we have an entertainment center, but we're also more involved in the karting than we were expecting. And I think the interest of the drivers, the interest of the karting racing industry is shown a lot of interest, and we felt that it was a good move to be more involved in the world of karting by having an outdoor racetrack to run. So I think we're all very excited about it. I mean, we're gonna do it a bit different than it's been done before there, because we are more interested in the racetrack business and not really the racing championship and the categories and the sale of motors and tires and all that. We're going to focus really on the client experience. So investing in a new restaurant down there, like a snack bar restaurant. We're going to have new kart fleet. Obviously, the new CRG outdoor gas go-kart for outdoor track. We're looking at building some storage garage outside, adding some asphalt to have different configuration of track for the rental, allowing the kids and the family to have their track and the more experienced driver to have another track. So pretty cool project. I mean, on the racing side, we're looking into different scale situation. I mean, taking the experience of your track in Edmonton, where guys ride on top of the scale, and it's covered much easier, much quicker turnaround when you have lots of class in a day that you need to pass. And looking onto a chassis dyno as well. I think what we feel is that go-karting is becoming so technical, and there's some really strong teams out there with like lots of knowledge, but karting is also for the kid that goes to the track with his father, and maybe doesn't have the money or the budget to be in a big team. So for instance, if you allow him to have the chance to spend an hour on a chassis dyno, basically what he's going to be able to do, he's going to be able to check his carburetor, like change, like the spark plug, or change the jetting, and basically have a full confirmation that was better or that was worse, right? So same thing with the engine. I think when you get the confirmation of what works best and what doesn't work, I think you might not need as much support to try to, get as competitive as other people, do. So, like, I mean, in our team, we analyze a lot of data. We have my father, that's the engine builder and all that stuff. It's all great and good. But even for us, sometimes we feel that, if we would be able to have like a live chassis dyno, because there's nothing better than a track dyno, but we cannot always test and test and test because it costs a lot of money to test. I think sometimes we need to validate certain things, and as good as it's going to be for us, it could easily be for other people that are coming to the track and they're wondering, what jet we need to run today. So yeah, there's so many applications out there that you can get to try to guess the best jetting, but on that day with 20 degrees C, with this humidity, just do it on the chassis dyno. And then within 1 hour, you can try, 6, 7 different configuration, and you will know what you should be running. So even with being a small kind of competitor with like small team or maybe less budget, you'll be able to try to maximize your chances on being at the high level with this type of stuff. So overall, I mean, we want to also change the pit lane because we feel that when competitors are coming, like in Tree River, like there's a false grid where you grid the cars to get ready to go on track to practice. So all the series are all parked on the grid, and then the pit lane is wide open. So when you come out of the pit lane, you get out of the track, and then everybody is already gridded. Instead of the way Tremblant was doing it in the past, they were using the pit lane to grid the go-karts, and so the pit lane is completely closed, no access. And before you go and grid on the pit lane, you were in this like parc fermé in front of the building where everybody was crowded and they were all in line to get in that little parc fermé. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build this secondary pit lane parallel to the original pit lane, and they will be linked to the pit out and pit in, and then it will be split in half, and the center will be where the scale is. So basically what you do is when you're ready to go out, let's say there's like DD2 on track and the next group is Rotax Senior. So Rotax Senior will be in the secondary pit lane, like the grid. So nobody is in the pit lane. They all park their cart on the ground there. And when the DD2 comes out of the pit, the track, they're not coming in the pits, they're coming in on the grid. So, and that grid will be used to be gridding the car when you reverse the track. So on clockwise, you will use the left grid, and anti-clockwise, you will use the right grid. So the pit lane, there's no lineup of go-karts that are waiting to go to scaling, and then you're worried about how many minutes you're giving to the competitors for practicing, because you're thinking, if I don't put enough minutes, that session will be over, and there'll still be about 12 go-karts from the previous session in the pit lane to try to go to scale, and then it keeps accumulating. So, try to improve the flow. Like there's a lot of project that we want to do, and over time, I think it's going to benefit, the racers, the lappers, and also the families, the clients that want to get initiated into the go-karting. We ordered the best of the best go-karts. We ordered the 13.5 horsepower, the one that like are extremely quick compared to the 9 horsepower that they had in the past. And we're trying to use our Taggy Karting indoor software to replicate different driving modes, so we can receive beginners, intermediate, and pro drivers, and have all these things available to them. And we'll see.
You can control the gas carts the same way as the electric carts.
Yeah, so it's not the same way.
The same idea.
It's a different. Yeah, it's the same idea. It's the same software that you were using onto the electric track. Same software to to control, but the way it's controlled on the cart, it's with an electronic box that basically controls the sparks. So on an electric cart, it controls something different into the electric engine to basically create the different modes of driving. But on the track, on the carts, it's going to do the same, but it's a different box. It's going to send the same signal to our software, but it's a different box attached to the wiring, of the go-karts to be able to do that.
I don't know if you saw that or not, but I have my spies on the inside that shared that with me the other day. All these new carts that free. Yep.
Arrives.
Very cool.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that track, I mean, cannot
cool.
say enough about how awesome that track at Mount Tremblant is. Like that track, when I describe it to other people, because I try not to be arrogant and think that I know everything about racing. The thing about Tremblant is that I will never say that it's the best track in the world because I don't know, but I know that there's no better. There might be equal, but it doesn't get any better. Just the way that the track is built on the mountain. You don't have bumps, you don't have heaves. Like every little oscillation that's out there is the way that the ground was, when they built it.
I think it has a lot of character, in my opinion, because first of all, the people that have built it have done an amazing job. I mean, it's FIA spec and CIK spec and all that, so it's really cool. Hopefully, in the future, we could interest the World Karting Association to come down, especially because it's a touristic location with lots of hotels and restaurants, so it could definitely support a big venue. But I think what it has, if you think about it, it has a little bit of banking in some places. It has a little bit of off camber in other places. It also has elevation changes. So when you go around anti-clockwise or counterclockwise, the track has like a different two different approach, right? So counterclockwise, you're going into turn one, it goes like downhill, and then that corner looks completely different than when you do in the other way. So turn one, turn two, extremely fast corners in fourth gear in a shifter kart, and then fifth at the exit, and you go down sixth gear to a heavy braking zone in second gear hairpin. And then after that, the section of the bowl is a bit banked, and then it's all acceleration. Then there's a huge descent, fast corner in fourth gear. I think it has that sort of character where the track has various different corners. So for the driver to experience all kinds of things with the go-karts, curbs where you can touch and curbs where you need to stay away. And then when you run it in clockwise, I mean, it doesn't look the same. I mean, in you go down in turn one, to a very tight corner, and then you go uphill into turn two, where it's like a very, very tight hairpin, and then like an open corner on the exit, down again to turn 4 and 5, the chicane and the uphill that fourth gear corner where you take it down with the other way around. It's weird, but it looks so different. And then the bowl, you're entering into the bowl where you have like almost no banking, and then the banking starts ramping up towards that little tight corner. So I just feel that for go-kart competitors, I mean, they have the chance to really have two tracks, because it's very difficult to build a track where it is as practical to run it in both directions. But because you have one facility, but you have two complete different track, and that is quite unique. And it makes the diversity of tracks for the competitors there and accessible. So hopefully we'll have some good races. We're also working extremely hard with another group. It's not announced yet, but we're working extremely hard with another group to create like a big meet during the season to do a very important race for racers to compete against each other. And I mean, we're also working with another track in the States We would like to have some internal competition between the two tracks and allow the competitors to have like a different type of racing and race against other competitors. So yeah, hopefully like our closest competitors, like the people from Quebec and Ontario, are gonna really enjoy more the track. And as karting continue to evolve, hopefully that we're gonna make clients happy, with our approach.
I'll get back out there as many times as I can for sure. My personal question is, do I finally get a decent parking spot when I come out there now that I know one of the guys that runs the place?
Oh yeah, man. Well, it'll be like Formula One parking
Well,
spot. At some point we can actually even have a go-kart there that's in the stall ready for you, so you don't have to ship or transport any go-kart. It's just waiting for you there. So every time you want to come and test, it's right there. Your name will be written on the
that's
shelf.
what I need. But we've been doing really well with our CRG business in the West, so there's a lot of people here who want to make that trip out. I just have to look at the schedule to see if we can do it the same way, where we can piggyback Oshweekend, Mosport, Canadian Open, and then a couple weeks later at Tremblant. Hopefully the schedule lines up for that, but I'm not sure if it will.
Yeah, I mean the CRG go-karts are doing very well right now, and you're right of mentioning it because they have won the world championship last year in KZ and KZ2. They have won the first big races with Iglesias. Gomez is just extremely fast and been winning races and in the Hockey Junior class. So I think the go-karts, they have something good. They work really hard. I think the patent braking system that they worked on for so many years, it's very unique. It's the only go-kart in the world that you have brake bias adjustment on a kart that has front and rear brakes, but then you also have like brake pressure adjustment. And that sort of adjustability is like a real big car. Is that you can change master cylinders. You can have big master cylinders at the front, big master cylinders at the rear, and control the pressure on the braking to basically get the rear brake not to lock or the front brake not to lock. So the system that CRG has now, it's that like you get your brake bias set where you want. When you're happy with it, if you feel that the rear is still locking a bit, you don't change the brake bias. You just take the clicker and open up the valve, and then all of a sudden you take away the pressure from the rear disc. So to me, that's always been like the thing that I appreciate from them. The fact that I know Giancarlo, the owner, very well, but also instead of like trying to get like vendors to buy a bunch of parts and put together focusing on a chassis and put together a go-kart, they build all their parts. They have like lots of machinery to build their own parts. It's the first company in the world that when they sell you a go-kart, they decided to sell you the go-kart with all the magnesium parts. Long time ago, people have kind of catch up to that, even though they have a lot of vendors to build those parts for them. But in the past, like other companies would sell you a chassis, and then you have this chassis with all the black stuff, the aluminum stuff. But then if you want, the better stuff, then you can upgrade. I'm just thinking, listen, we're going racing. Like racing is racing, so you need to have the best stuff. Like why going to race, with all heavy stuff, and then you need to buy. I really like that from the company, and then most importantly, because we work together, for the North American market, I also like the fact that they are able to build a chassis for us extremely quick, right? So like the Briggs go-kart, for example, was a good example where everybody runs Briggs, and they take a two-stroke chassis with 3-bearing axle, and they take the third bearing and they tie wrap the cassette, and then they don't run the third bearing. Even sometimes some people are taking it away. So CRG said, oh, okay, so if everybody runs this chassis and then they take the third bearing, let me build a go-kart with only 2 bearings. So why bringing a chassis with three bearing and carry all of that. The rear brake size and weight has to be adapted for the rotating mass of a brake. So they made that. And then they said, well, our Briggs chassis for entry-level go-karters, it's meant for our 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. So the chassis was all built in 28 millimeter tube. So they said, you know what? Let's build a 30-32. So for North American with, karting, for people that are racing in the master class with 395-pound weight, the chassis is more solid. So I like that, where they're thinking about other market and try to satisfy clients in a different way. Because in Europe, maybe you don't need that. And factories are just, you don't like this chassis? Okay, we're going to do this chassis. So let's put the tube away and build another chassis with a new tube. These guys could change chassis, every 2 races. But that's when they compete at a very high level. So everybody looks at the result and think that we can sustain that sort of, program. But in North America, you can't. I mean, I have a shifter go-kart. I've been having my shifter go-kart for 3 years. It's been running well. I'm pretty happy with it. But if you start telling me that I need to change my tube every 2 races to run up at the front, I mean, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I'm not going to spend, $100,000 per year to go racing go-karts, right? So that's why I really appreciate the philosophy behind CRG, and we're very happy and proud that they're running at the front now, and they're very successful.
Yeah, it's they've been fantastic people to deal with. I really loved getting to visit the factory when I was in Europe last year for the grand finals. Awesome to finally meet Mr. Tagliani. Unfortunately, I missed out on a couple people, but yeah, it was great. I don't want to keep you too long. I got one question though, because I'm really curious as to what the answer is. I mean, again, been with you for a lot of your accomplishments. I want to know, professionally from racing, what do you consider either your best win or your best accomplishment?
I mean, I think making it, it's what kickstart, everything. It's like such a tough question, because there's always something behind, like a result that makes you proud. And then the more you think about answering that question, the more your head gets filled with things that you have done. But those things would have never been able to be there if you're not making it, right? So I mean, I could say probably my test in Sebring is what changed my life, because if I would have not tested right, but then again, it's an example of what I was saying, like, okay, so yes, I tested right. Yes, I was challenged on the setup. Yes, I was trying to be tricked, and I came out and I impressed the team and I got the ride. But then what if my father would have never prepared me the way he prepared me, by doing all these crazy things in karting, where he would have been a father that was more concerned about winning plastic trophies than actually educating me, to be who I become, either as a person and treat my crew and my mechanics well, and also to be prepared to try to have splashes of performance in a shitty car with like a small team, or try to take the advantage and benefit of running with a big team and a good car. So it's tough to say, I mean, I really love also, I mean, yes, look, being on the pole at Indy is something that I will cherish for the rest of my life, because we know, and I know internally, that we were a very small team. And that year, I heard so many interesting things from engineers, but when they say, when you start Indy, and you're fast and you have a chance to be on the pole, that's when your butt is going to get tight for the entire first week of running, because when you know you can fight for the pole, then all of a sudden your focus is all about finding a car for qualifying. And now you start trimming the car and you're running on the track with all the other guys, and you don't know what they're running. Sometimes they're running big downforce for race running, sometimes they don't. But now you find yourself on the track with most of the time with very, very little downforce, okay? And that is no fun. I can guarantee you that, because you're risking and you're driving the car at various different time of the day with lots of different wind directions and wind speed. So, but you can't not do it because you have a shot. You have a legitimate shot at basically be on the pole, and you don't want to miss that because you never know when that's going to come back. And that happens to every team, big teams and small teams. So you're a big team, you show up at Indy, you put the car on the track, and the car is like 2 miles an hour slower. Well, I'm sorry, but you're not going to fight for the pole until you find where those 2 miles an hour are coming from. You know, it could be coming from the body, the engine. You could be coming from the friction. Whatever it is, you're not going to be on the pole. You're a small team, same thing. But then when you have that chance, the team is working like the whole group, right? You do something on the car, you take the car, you bring it to the garage. Okay, let's look at the wind. Okay, what we're gonna do a little change. Okay, let's go test 5 laps. We do this. So there's so much intensity and there's so much like stress because you also put the car at risk. You also know that the driver is out there with these little changes that are making the car extremely on the edge, and everybody's on their toes because they say, oh man, we can't crash a car like this, you know, before qualifying. We might never have the chance to repair it. So you sense the tension in the team. So that entire week was for me like something that I will always remember, because then finally when you're out there and you qualify and you're giving it all, right? You're the car is like, man, it's just like right there. It's trimmed, so you have like a big opening lap, and then it starts falling off because the car's sliding. But you need to be willing to use the weight jacker to get it like to rotate. And then on the radio, you get on the radio and you say, "Did we get it?" And the team manager was saying that, you know, that you were on the pole at the same time you were on the radio, so you didn't hear. And then that moment that I didn't hear his response, I took for granted that we didn't get it. And then he key again to say, man, you're on the pole for the Indianapolis 500. And I could hear all the noise of the crew jumping up and down. I mean, I swear to God, like I had this weight on my shoulder that just dropped, and I became extremely emotional. And I think it was like all the tension from that entire week that you were working towards that opportunity without knowing that we were going to get it. But you were working every single day, every single moment you were on the track, every lap you did, it was all about, you know, drive the car to make sure that you give yourself a shot at fighting for the pole. So when it happened, it's just, it's great. I mean, you cannot say that it's not one of the best moments, but I can tell you also that in a racing career, there's maybe not as big moments, but there is a moment that, you know, like you would be wondering, you know, why you compare it to Indianapolis. It's the pole in Vancouver. And so I mean, you're fighting with Penske, the cool green car at the time that became Andretti Racing. You have the Ganassi, and we're on a Reynard Ford versus the Honda, the Toyotas, and all the big guns. And we're out there on a street course. We're in front of our, you know, fans, and we're racing for players. And, you know, like we had a really good road course, street course car that year. Unfortunately, there was a lot of, you know, mechanical problems. But, you know, like I'm out there, and I swear to God that that qualifying lap, I don't even know if I could reproduce it myself. Because I took so many risks, and I was like when I came out of at the end of the back straightaway, there's a right corner, and it's a funky corner because it basically tights up the exit. It looks quite big, but the exit is quite tight, and so you're entering with like so much speed, and then you're wondering, oh man, I'm gonna make it, and the tire wall keeps going up, but then it stops. So if you respect the tire wall, you will realize that you have so much more room after the tire wall, so you could gain more speed. But if you drive it thinking, oh, I'm not going to respect the tire wall, then there's a very big possibility that you touch the tire wall before you get to the opening. So sometimes it's the type of risk that you need to take for gaining a tenth or two. And when I got on the pole there, I was so proud of myself, because that qualifier was probably like one of my best lap in my entire career of racing. And I had other poles, I had other, great runs, but like, let's say, my qualifying in Road America, I was third in 2000, and there was Gilles DeFerrin with a Penske car, Dario Franchitti, and I qualified third. And I took the lead right at the start. But I can tell you, in all honesty, that qualifying, I left the tenth and a half that I missed for the pole, I left it out there. The car had the opportunity to do it, and I just didn't put the entire kind of like 4.5 mile track all together, right? So as a driver, sometimes you have good result, but you're the only one that's going to go to bed with yourself, and you know what was in that car and if you could have done it or not, right? So it's tough to answer what is the best moment of your career, because every time you say one, then there's another one that pops in your head and you say, man, that was an awesome lap. Or then there's another one that says, oh my God, I'm so thankful I had that opportunity. So I just think that they all come with their baggage of experience, and they all create certain memories in your head. Like, you look at when I won Road America in 2004. Like, I could have won Road America 1. It was 6 laps to go, and I broke a input shaft, and PT won the race. Then there was another race where I was fighting with Kenny Brack, and I was like probably the fastest car out there, and literally it started raining, and basically people were flipping out with the tire. Then it starts drying. We came in, we put our slicks, we were out there with the rain strip that was on the back straightaway after the kink, and me and Kenny put our slicks. So we gave up first and second position, and then we were going through that rain strip. It was slippery, it was crazy, but we were waiting for the track to dry, and someone literally crashed, and they put the red flag. We all came into the pits. They waited for the track to dry, and they allow everybody in the pits to go from their rain tires to slicks. So we cycled back so far, and then we had to work our way, burn our tires, do all this to try to get back some position. But then, you're not in control of the race. You're just fighting it back. So, and it happened again when I finished second behind, I think, Cristiano D'Amara and Bruno Gianchiera. And finally, I'm arriving with Rocket Sport, and we're very fast in practice. We're running at the front. And in the last practice before qualifying, we have a rear damper that breaks in turn 7. And basically, I lost the rear of the car and just crashed. And now my car is all messed up, and I don't know if it's going to be repaired. So they repaired the rear of the car. They put it back together, and I went to qualify, and we had like a shifting problem. So I qualified 13, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like again? So I have like all this opportunity to win Road America, been on the podium many times there, qualify always quick, and always something happened. And then finally, that race, everything happens for me. I made my pit stop right. Like everybody cycled to the back. I took the lead, and we were able to capitalize on the speed we had to win the race. And I had to do it after my last pit stop to make that last pass going into turn 5. So after I was at the press conference, I don't remember his name, but there's a journalist that made me notice that it was the 8th of August. So it was the 8th day of the 8th month. It was the round number 8 of the championship. I was the 8th driver that was winning his first race at that track in Road America, and I was car number 8. And I said, man, I ate so much shit all those years that now I had a little bit of luck, because with all these, numbers, maybe this was maybe a lucky streak, and but I deserved it. So all these type of things, like you remember them, and it's tough to pinpoint one thing, but Indianapolis, again, it would have not been the same if it would have been like a 1-day qualifying. I think the appreciation that I got from Indy was because it was like so many days of work, so many crazy moments, so many like, okay, pit this lap. Yeah, I'm coming in. I got loose coming in. So, like I just basically living through all of that and having a car to qualify, when you don't have a spare car, it's just, like when all the big teams, they take their number 8 and their number 8X, and the cars are the same, like you don't have any room for error.
And that
So
car was
that's why I think
that was the car. That was the road course car and the oval car, right?
no, that was like just our oval car.
Because there was an example of that one year too. But anyway,
yeah, the backup car was a road course car, and I can promise you, if we would have put the road course car on the track, it would have gone like 3 miles an hour slower, right? So there was no chance. But and then that car got on the pole in Texas. We did the pole in Texas 2 years in a row. So yeah, I mean it was a good, like a good experience. Indianapolis also, it's a very unique track. I was rookie of the year in 2009. I got on the pole in 2011, and I came really close 3 years out of my 9 years that I tried. And the closest one that I came to win the race was the year where Alexander Rossi won. So I was fighting for the lead at the end, legitimate car to win with Rossi in the last 30 laps of the race. So I think a stint was 27 laps and or 28 laps, and we couldn't do it. So we had to come and do this pit stop to try to go to the end. And I think we were basically, half a gallon from making it to the next lap, and or 0.2, 0.3 of a gallon. And basically the team calls me in. I come into the pits. I put the fuel. It's my last pit stop. They did a good job. Pit stop's great. I try to get to rejoin the track, and they call yellow because Buddy Lazier lost a tire after his pit stop. So everybody else that I was competing in, now they're catching the pace car.
Stop, yep.
So that free pit stop, I got cycled back to, I think, 26 or 27. And I lost the opportunity to battle for the win at that exact moment, And 2011 also, I was battling with the 2 Ganassi car the entire race for 100 laps. And then the engine start overheating, and the team start taking blockers off, removing a bunch of, like aerodynamics pieces to get the engine to cool down. And by doing that, we lost the aero balance. The car became extremely, extremely slow. And so the team decided to start taking pieces off to trim the car to regain our speed. And as they did that, the car became like so loose the car was actually pulling to the right because the blocker that they removed was on the right side pod, and then by pulling it, the air coming in the right side pod was making my car going to the right before every left. And then when they got the car to trim, the car became just very lively. So I lost the rear and I just tagged the wall and I bent a toe link late in the run. So so obviously overall 3 times where I came very close, but overall, like having been rookie and the pole, so two things out of the 3 you can get at Indy, it's still not too
So
shabby.
the rookie of the year, the 2009, leads me. I have kind of 3 or 4 that I'm going to throw at you here, but 2009 was super special because you didn't make the show. You were eliminated. And
That's right.
mentioned Bruno's name. Bruno was gracious enough to get out of his car so that you could get in because you had a better sponsorship package, and that led to that starting 33rd, finishing 9th, 10th.
Yes, 9th.
Which is really cool because for me, like 33rd to 9th is awesome, but it's the adversity of the highs and the lows and being in and then out and then in and everything that's going. So getting away from Indy here, I'm going to say it's 3, but it might end up being 10. I don't know. First win in Pinty's at GP3R, which was just awesome to get that win and to notch that, to finally get a win at Canadian Tire after so many races in Pinty's that were like Pinty's and truck that were so close that just for whatever reason, engine lets go, contact, so many things went wrong. And I still say that Canadian Tire still owes our team a couple of wins. But the number one, which you may agree with, you may not agree with, but I'm going to say the number one accomplishment and my number one favorite is last year's race in Saskatoon.
I would say you're putting me in a very tough spot because so GP3R, you have to remember every single time the calendar came out while I was racing in IndyCar, I was always trying to make it, right? So, how can I rent a ride? How can I find some sponsorship to go back there? I have no conflict as a schedule. So I can do GP3R. I can do Montreal. And I wanted to win that race, in NASCAR because I won it in Formula Atlantic. And I won Toronto in Formula Atlantic and Montreal. And I wanted to win in NASCAR. And I finished second to Marcus Ambrose in Montreal in Xfinity when I drove the 12 Penske car. Little bump at the end, thanks to
I remember that.
our Aussie friend. No retaliation, by the way. And that's why I wanted, and then finally I won it. So like GP2R is close to my heart. I would say that you're correct in regards of Saskatoon because we had a year at the team where we dominated Sunset twice. We lapped the entire field twice. We basically lapped almost the entire field until P4 in Riverside. We dominated Edmonton. There was a year on the oval where we were just dominating. And we struggled since the General Tire, came into our series. And then we start seeing some light at the end of the tunnel last year on the oval. And I think we had a pole in Edmonton. We had some adversity there because we thought that after fixing the car in the pit lane, we were climbing back from last all the way to P4, P5. And we had a really good shot at it because we made the car much better, and now we were in contention after passing a lot of cars on a track where it's already difficult to pass. And we never had the chance to finish that race because of the contact. And the contact resulted into a destroyed car that the team needed to fix. And when we left Edmonton, with the way the state of the car was, we thought that Saskatoon we were gonna miss it. Then we went from
Do you
missing it
remember?
to
Sorry to
thinking
butt
that
in because it's really important. Do you remember what Scott said? So Scott Stackley, owner of 22 Racing, that provides the car and the team for us. Do you remember what Scott said when we got back into the track afterwards and the car was still hanging on the tow truck?
I know we were there late in the pit lane while they were, trying to pick up the car. But I don't remember.
I said to Scott, because I'm not, for anyone who knows me or doesn't know me, it's no secret that I am not mechanically sound. But the car is damaged, and I leaned over to Scott and I said, what do you think? And I'm not going to chuck Scott under the bus, but in not using his exact words, he said the car's destroyed. It was a shorter phrase that he used, and destroy. He said, there's no way we're getting this car back on track. I'm like, okay. So that was on Saturday. We spent most of Sunday and Monday. So Sunday is when the team loads up and transits over to Saskatoon. You and I spent most of Sunday and Monday not knowing if we had a race to go to.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we were fighting for being second in the points. So we lost a lot of points in Edmonton. And if we were going to lose the 2 races in Saskatoon in points, I think the championship was over. And so, yeah, the team repaired a car. There was a lot of help from a lot of people. And it was literally, amazing to see that car back on the track, the way it was. And so we got the car back on the track, and race 1, I think we had a very competitive car, but because a lot of the guys in front of us were running side by side, we had nowhere to go. We were ready to go, but we couldn't go anywhere because the guys were running 2 by 2. And so we basically spend most of the race try to make a hole or try to make moves on restarts, and it didn't happen. And then race number 2, we literally just make one small change, and the car was extremely good on the outside on restarts, and we went from P10 all the way to the lead, like in a very quick way. And then once we got there, we stayed there, battle with Andrew, and protect our position all the way to the finish and win. And you're right. I think that that sort of disappointment of one race, with the thought of missing out 2/3 of the entire Western Tour, and finishing the Western Tour with, it started awesome, by the way. We were doing all these interviews, and we were traveling. We were doing like a vlog with Sam, and then so we had a lot of fun. But then we had like bad stuff happening, disappointment, and then we finished with the win in that sort of fashion. I tell you, it's I have to give it to you. I would say
and Saskatoon, I think you and I agree, is I don't want to say anything bad about any track, but Saskatoon is one of those tracks from the first time we went there was a favorite. Just the configuration of the track, the raceability of the track. We've always had, we've got a regular restaurant we go to. We stay at the same general hotels, just always love our time there. So to finally not only just get a win there, but to get it in that style where it was, and I'll throw one more element at it. It's not so much that it was, it was adversity. It was the fact that every single member of our team from 22 Racing, we had the McCall's guys, every hand on deck found a way to undo the damage that was done when that car was, destroyed, to go from that to get the phone call on Monday to say, we've got the car back together and we're going to be on track, but we don't know what we've got. It's back pretty close to the way it was, but we don't know. And I remember the first race starting not as well as you do. I remember it being like, man, this car, there's something wrong with this car. I don't know what I can do. I don't know, I'm kind of stuck behind these guys. I can't find a hole. And we actually made a pit stop in that first race, which is kind of, it's not common because you don't want to lose the track position because it's such a quick race at only 150 laps and make it. I think we made 2 or 3 pit stops, to be honest, but maybe I've got that wrong. And then all of a sudden it was the same kind of adjustment that we made in Wetaskiwin that woke the car up. And that was the term that you used, was like, oh, this car is awake. It's time to go. And, started to kind of move up, which got us, finally got us the 10th place or the 10th fastest lap. Which is why we only started 10th, but I think we were a bit better than that. But anyway, that whole thing was pretty awesome.
I think, yeah, it's amazing memory. What happened? I really think, thinking about it, it's, I mean, I'm more into.
Uh-oh. Let's see if he comes back. That's kind of a sad way to end if that's what we need to do.
Kind of like rest with me more.
Sorry, you kind of blacked out there for a good 10 seconds.
I think it's Bronte trying to call me. Just give me a second. Can I put her on the line?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, baby.
Hi, my love. We're just calling to say goodnight.
Oh, I'm on the podcast and everybody can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
You want to say hi to Colin?
Sure. Hi, Colin.
I can say hi to her, but aren't I in your headset?
Yes, so he's saying hi.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to disturb you. We're just calling to say goodnight.
Okay, I'm going to finish my podcast and wish you good night, baby.
All right.
Okay, love you.
You say good night? Good night, Eva? Good night, Daddy. I love you.
Oh, me too, baby girl. Good night, my love.
Good night.
Good night.
We'll chat tomorrow.
Okay, bye, girls.
Bye.
Yes, the life on the road, huh?
That goofball, man. I can't wait to see her in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I miss her. Been a very hectic 2 weeks.
Oh, dude. When I see you, well, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
That's right. You better.
I haven't figured out. I'm probably just going to take an Uber when I get there. I'm not going to bother renting a car, but the hotel's close enough anyway to the airport. But I'll definitely see you tomorrow night. I got one other question I ask everybody, and I'm not going to give you a pass here, even though we've been on for 2 hours and 5 minutes here. I haven't even. What's funny is we haven't even got to like 20% of what I want to talk to you about. So we'll have to do this again, not just when we're sitting in a hotel lobby at 3 o'clock in the morning, but
and next time we do this, like, I mean, I was like confused because at the beginning of your podcast, it asked me if I wanted to stream the podcast via 4 different social platforms.
Social medias. Yeah.
Yeah. So I called Sam, and I said, hey, by the way, look at the picture. Which one I select? I mean, so I'm so good with social media that I have to ask someone. And then he goes, take Facebook. So I click on Facebook, and basically it was my personal Facebook instead of being the fan page. And by the time, we figure it out, basically the clock started on the podcast, and then it says you can't select like a social platform when the podcast has started. So next time we do it, I'm going to get ready before, and we're going to do it right.
No problem. So here's my question for you, bud. And before I forget, I got to throw this up because I did find this here as you're scarfing down. So I'll show you this one because I didn't show you this. This is still one of my favorite pictures.
No, that's my favorite, I think.
That was about 36 degrees on pit lane at the Toronto Indy. I still see different races. I don't want to get back into the Indy 500, but I just have to mention, because I've never met a harder worker in my entire life than Todd Malloy. and getting to watch Todd as an engineer working during the Indy 500. I mean, that guy, there's a lot of exaggerating that goes on in racing, but he lived in that engineering office. He was at track at like 6 a.m. and didn't leave until 2 a.m. Like, what a guy. Love him to pieces.
He likes the engineering aspect, and he's very and you know what? When I went to test the GT3 car in Daytona, I ended up calling him because he's now at Rail Letterman and he works on the BMW project. And he works on the LMDH project for BMW with Rail Letterman race team. So anyway, we were there and I'm gonna say it, but anyway, he's such a good engineer, man. So I call him and I said, listen, I said, we have a problem. He said, you know, like we're out there testing, and he goes, what tire are you running? And I said, oh, we're running. We were not on the Michelin. I think we were on the Hankook. And he says, we're running on the Hankook. He goes, just pack and go home. And I'm like, you know, like, oh, it's like the team is trying to, you know, like try to test, but the problem is like we're blowing up tires on the straightaway, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, and you're gonna keep blowing tires unless you take all the camber out of the tire. But then when you take all the camber out of the rear tire, then the car is just it's undrivable. So why would you want to test like that? So anyway, it's a funny story because, you know, Todd he's so good, you know, and he's like he would either test correctly or he would just not test, right? I mean, there's no two way about it. And you know, like he's one of the engineer that I work with that would get involved into analyzing the data from a good lap or from a corner and go through all the channels that are available to him, like shock displacement, downforce, COP, frequency, ride height control, third shock, springs, like everything, right? And at the end, he would discuss with you, and then what you think you had in the car and what you felt, it starts even making more sense when the guy is literally explaining to you in schmuck words. Because if he talks to me with engineer words, with all the things open on all his screens, I'm going to go, okay, yeah. But, you know, like he's basically taking all the information that he has and literally explaining it to you in a way that you can understand, right? So differential, you know, like looking at all the diff when it locks, when it opens. And then when you're about to make a change to the car or you're about to do something, it makes sense where he's going into because he verbalized, you know, the information that he understands himself as an engineer, but you can't understand it. And then it makes a lot of sense. And I think we started the year in 2012. I was with Brian Erda Autosport, and he was my engineer, and we started with the Lotus engine, and it was oh my god, it was like one of my worst experience in life. Not, I think, because Lotus cars might not be good cars, but unfortunately, that Lotus engine was like the worst engine I ever drove in my racing career. It didn't have any sorts of horsepower. It was literally
What was the
like
max speed at Indy was like 211 miles an hour. That was the top speed that was able to be squeezed out of that thing. For
it
like,
was
you
so sad.
guys switched it just before Brazil that year, and you know had a
No, just before Indianapolis 500.
Okay, so after
So
Brazil,
the team,
yeah.
So the team,
There were two Lotus
team decided to switch.
Two Lotus cars
Yes.
continued to run, and the fastest speed that they were able to wasn't it Alain Prost was in one of the cars? Is
No, it was
Lacey? Sorry,
Jean Lézy,
Yeah, and 211 miles an hour on a year when qualifying was like 224.
Yeah, it was
Something
so
like
bad.
that, yeah.
It was extremely bad. And but we changed the Honda engine, and we had such a good car in the race. And that's the third race that I should have won, in all honesty. And I'm like so sad, because like Todd gave me such a fast car, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was able to do anything I wanted on the track, but because we changed last minute to the Honda, and really good decision from the team, there was a lot of system and there was a lot of procedure that we didn't know. And so apparently there's a I needed to press the pit lane button for like more seconds than I pressed it when I came into the pits. And then basically, like, the speed, I dropped the speed all the way. I saw that like there was supposed to be an alarm, but it didn't really engage. So you drop the speed more, and then you reaccelerate to tap into the limiter, right? That's how you're not gonna. That's not how you're gonna not get a penalty. Because if you try to time it where you're at the speed at the line, you could be at 84 or at 80. But like, if you're at 84, you're gonna get caught. But if you drop it a little bit before the line, like let's at 75, and when you pass the line, you reaccelerate and you hit 80, and it stops you there, you're more safe to get caught, right? And that was my technique. But when I reaccelerate, it basically bust over the 80, and then I realized that the speed never got stopped, so I slowed down. But within the beacon, I got caught, right? So we went a lap down, and it was such a disaster, because my car was so fast. I got into the lead in the first segment, and I mean, we were just like, I mean, it was a rocket ship. So yeah, it was sad. But anyway, we changed to Honda at Indy, and then after that we start a sequence of street course and road course racing, and we made it in the Firestone Fast 6, all of them. And it was like, Todd was such a good engineer that with a team with that sort of with that budget, I mean, Todd with a bit more, I mean, we would have only be in the Firestone Fast 6, but we would have won races. It was just our limitation were that we just had like very small budget.
Yeah, there's so many. Now all of a sudden you say that, and like, these are pre-made notes, but now I'm flashing back to the year where things turned around with Andy O'Gara. Like, what a great guy he was. Our friend from Blancpain, Rodrigo. So many of these great names. But again, I'm going to let you go here, but I still have to ask you the question, and I have to show you this, which is probably going to cause another 30 minutes. But I found this picture here. This goes back to the incident at San Jose 2006. This was last year.
Oh my God, that was Mexico, and that was man. Did we not have a badass time down there?
You want to talk about overcoming adversity, but obviously getting to hang out with the IndyCar legends. And I know I'm going to forget someone, so I probably shouldn't name anyone, but, spending time, hanging out with you guys, Bruno, Oriole, Michelle Jourdain, PT, Casey Mears,
Max.
Yeah. Mad
Max Papis.
And just
Blondell.
Yeah. Just sitting back for the most part and shutting up and listening to the stories that got told on the bus and get the stories that were told at supper and at breakfast. And it's like the new generation of drivers will never have that, at least not to the same way. They might be able to get along, but what a great experience that whole thing was, and getting to see like the true friendship that happened from, you guys that raced those cars back in the Champ Car days. That was something awesome. But obviously, what happened in San Jose was a heartbeat, and knowing, the stories that we won't tell, from the days in Vegas with PT and G Money and Pat and all. Like there's a whole show just on that stuff. But my last question for you,
I think the Mexico race that we did in those cool cars with Michelle,
Super
and
Copa.
thanks for him. Yeah, Super Copa was awesome. I think what I realized. I mean, I know that Oriol mentioned it to me. I know that Max mentioned it to me. But one thing that I noticed, why maybe this type of friendship has lasted for so long, is that in the days, the truth was that we were. It was like it's there was times where it's almost like the movie Rush. We were racing
I'm not sure if
in
I've ever seen that
conditions.
movie.
Uh, we were racing in some conditions that we knew the risk was so high. I mean, it's just like like driving a car at 241 mile an hour average and doing 255 mile an hour top speed in a draft. It's there there's no room for error. And I relived some of those races by watching them on YouTube, and the speed of those cars, they kept accelerating. I think in those days we had like almost 1,000 horsepower. It was nuts. And the car was handling and gripping like we were pulling so many G's. So when you were driving and fighting with someone wheel to wheel, I mean, you need to have his respect. He needs to have your respect, and you need to trust the people around, even though you're out there to try win races. But I think that's why we have like had a good bond and good friendship, because in a way they might not saying it out loud in a dinner, even though they will, like we know that. But we're kind of lucky to be alive. We're lucky that we race against each other, and nothing really ever happened that we can say that we're pissed at each other, from a safety standpoint. So if you put all that together, I think those are probably the reason why you see this crazy respectful bond, because we're just lucky that we made it through, and we're still there to enjoy the rest of our life.
Yeah, that was a really great experience, and just couldn't be better, guys. I mean, Michelle Jourdain, just unbelievable amount of effort to put that whole thing in and expense, and bouncing around as promoter of the event, and then helping everyone coordinate. We had such great people helping, the assistants that Yamili and oh geez, now I'm drawing a blank again, but such awesome people, like unbelievable. But my last question for you,
Yeah, it was awesome
before we before I see you tomorrow. It sounds like if we keep going, you're going to walk me onto the airplane here, but
you're gonna miss your flight.
yeah, well, I've still got a few hours, but it's okay. What is the biggest misconception that people have of you that you want to clear up?
Man, then I'm a prima donna. Like let's put this straight, man. If there's a guy that is more generous of his time and always with his heart on his sleeve to try to make people happy, and to really embrace every type of person that we meet, and kind, is me. Like I just, and again, I'm saying it without what's the term? Without arrogance or cockiness, because I've noticed it like throughout my career. So many times I noticed small things that people would probably not even notice. So in Edmonton, Indy, there was this kid that was
I know
in
who
the
you're
back of
talking
my
about.
trailer. Yeah. And so, like he was there waiting for me, and I kept watching, and I couldn't go along without going to see him. I was afraid, and this is the way that's why I think that of me, because I know what I felt that day. I said, let me go see him, because if I don't go see him and I go into the engineering room, he might not have the chance to see me. He will go, and he would have left. He would have stayed there behind the trailer every single practice, and every single time we're back, and he never has the chance to see me. So I went out. I give him a visor, like so many times. I give things away to some people that kids that are there, and they seem like they saw a ghost. So yeah, for people that think that I'm like such a little prima donna who have an attitude, they it's a misconception, and it's definitely without knowing me, if they think that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the picture, and I don't think I'll find it in time here. But
There was a picture in the press in the Edmonton Sun with that kid.
yeah, I'm looking for a picture going back to Indianapolis, and I'm gonna. I mean, I can't stop telling these stories, but oh geez, where is it?
Maybe one day we're gonna have to make a show about just about stories and about like crazy pictures.
But this is a 100% true story. You were being swarmed by people at Indy, and for people who don't know, Indy's a really busy time, but you also, every driver knows that they have to give some time to the fans, and you were just going crazy with autographs and signed everything, took the selfies, did the whole thing, and then there ended up with this parade of people getting their autograph, and you were in such a mode to try and get everyone through, you didn't notice your dad walked through. You're like, well, thank you very much, and he's like, thank you very much, and you're like, huh? Now tell me, is that a true story or is that a lie?
Yeah, and I remember what he had on. He had this little beige jacket, like a beige windbreaker, and I know he came to Indy, and was walking around the paddock, and I can tell you that my father is the type of guy that is low key. One day he came with my grandfather to Indy, Toronto, and I was racing for players, and everybody was asking me, where's your family, and they were trying to find out, and I said, I don't know. They never came to the hospitality, and then all of a sudden I see my father with like maybe a hot dog in his hand. He went to buy a hot dog at the concession stand where we had an hospitality in the paddock with like private chef and everything, right? And I said, what are you doing going to buy like hot dogs? Just go there to eat. There's everything you can eat. You have like three different type of menus. You have like drinks and everything. Well, he goes, oh, no, I don't want to disturb anybody. So not even coming under the tent. I had to just dragging him under the tent to come and see the car close,
Yeah.
right? So that's my parents. And then when he was at Indy, like I called him and I said, listen, I have a very fast car. I said, listen, like I think I could be in the top 3 with this car. And I said, I would really like for you to come and watch the race. And he didn't want to come. He said, oh, no, I don't want to come. I said, Dad, you need to see Indianapolis for once in your life. You need to see this place. You need to. I'm there, and maybe I'm going to be at the front, so I have a chance, I'm going to. And that's when I was in the Fast 9. So I already knew that I couldn't start worse than 9th, right? So, and I said to him, I said, look, if I'm on the pole, you come. You willing to bet that? So I took a risk, and he said, yeah. He said, if you're on the pole, I'm coming. So I was on the pole, but little F, right, didn't really make any arrangement.
Yeah.
So
I remember
He
that.
made the bet. He lost the bet, right? So then I need to talk to Scott Dixon with arrangement that he had with like a private jet company, and I said, how much it's going to cost me to send, this plane to pick up my family, and well, it was a FT little amount. So I basically regrouped a bunch of people that wanted to come to Indy, and they all chip in for paying their portion of the ticket, and it allowed me to have the plane sent down there, and my mom, my sister, my niece, my father, they all came, and yeah, he saw the Indianapolis 500. My mom, when she saw the first car for out there on the track. She didn't like it, so she didn't really see anything of the race. She just put a pair of running shoes and she kept walking in the infield, because obviously it's really impressive to watch these cars going at that speed. And so she didn't see the race, but my father, he did, and I'm happy he saw that.
I remember because I had to pick people up at the airport, and then I remember because I kind of have my pattern during the race. For the most part, any of the Indy 500s I ever went to, I almost never saw them from pit road. I had full hard card access. I could get to, and most of the team welcomed me up to the pit box. Like I could get to the engineering stand. But I would often leave because I'd go watch in the motorhome, because I could see the TV. I could get timing and scoring. There was a bathroom. It was air conditioned. It was perfect. But I remember watching the start of that race because it was your mom, Karen, and Bronte standing as far away from the pit box as they could. They were still on pit road in line, and they were backed up against the fence because they didn't want to get anywhere near it. So it was, I'll never forget that. My man, love you to pieces. Thank you so much. You can't actually see my run of show notes, but it's actually the last thing about how you're so giving of your time, because you and I, we've gone through personal stuff, we've gone through professional stuff. I can tell you that there is no better friend to have on the planet. I know no matter how busy, if it's 6 months for whatever reason we don't talk, the second I pick up the phone, you are the first guy. You'll run the furthest, you'll lift the most, you'll push, you're always there.
We still need to talk about cart setup.
I can call you when I get on the road, because if I don't get home, supper's been ready for a while. I'm going to be in. I've already been asked if she should make a phone call, and I could say goodnight to her on the phone during the show too. And I said, you can do whatever you want, but I probably won't take your call like Alex. So, but my man, if you want, I'll give you a call when I get to the car here. We can talk about the setup stuff. We don't want to publish that publicly anyway, because we don't want to give away our secrets to the rest of the karting world. But the very most, thank you, or the very least, thank you so much for so generously giving of your time. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend, and really looking forward to another great season.
Yes, bud. Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure. I'm going to do my little rollout here, and I'll give you a call in a little bit.
All right, buddy.
Cheers, man.